Welcome to Congress in Context. So glad you're joining us for this deep dive into basically the hidden administrative machinery of the legislative branch.
Yeah, the stuff you don't usually see on the news.
Exactly. Because, usually when you picture the United States Congress at work, you envision this very specific, highly kinetic scene.
Oh, totally. Packed chambers, heated debates echoing off the marble walls.
Right. Gavels banging, a flurry of reporters stationed in the hallways. You essentially expect this massive, visible engine of democracy just roaring at full capacity.
Right, because we are entirely conditioned by the media to associate legislative action with physical presence. And volume, honestly.
Yeah.
If the room is empty, the general assumption is that the government has simply paused.
But, and this is what's so fascinating, if you look at the official Congressional Record for today, Thursday, August 13, 2026, that roaring engine looks completely different.
Completely different.
The Senate gaveled into session today at exactly 8:01 and 34 seconds in the morning. And then they adjourned at 8:02 and 2 seconds.
So what is that?
The entire session lasted exactly 28 seconds.
Wow, 28 seconds.
Yeah. And the House of Representatives, they were practically working overtime by comparison.
Yeah.
They met at 9 a.m. and adjourned at 9:03 a.m. 3 minutes.
28 seconds in the Senate, 3 minutes in the House. So 0 key votes, 0 roll call tallies, no committee markups whatsoever.
Right. If you were a tourist, sitting in the gallery, you would have seen a nearly deserted room and just assumed absolutely nothing was happening.
Right, just totally empty.
Yet, despite those empty chambers, 27 new bills were introduced.
Yep.
3 resolutions were filed. Dozens of executive communications were processed. The administrative gears of government just kept turning at full speed.
They never actually stop.
Exactly. So today, we're going to explore exactly how a 3-minute workday generates that much structural output. But before we get into the mechanics of those 27 bills, just a quick housekeeping note for you.
Always important.
Yes. This deep dive is a completely independent project. So you can help support the production infrastructure by checking out the Buy Me a Coffee link in your app's show notes.
And you can also find a full bill summary breakdown for today's session right there in the notes, too.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into it. How does so much paperwork move through an empty room?
Well, you really have to look at the mechanical difference between political theater and administrative reality. Because what happened today is called a pro-forma session.
Right, pro-forma.
Yeah. The Constitution actually dictates that neither chamber can adjourn for more than 3 days without the consent of the other chamber.
Okay.
So when lawmakers return to their home districts, like they do for the August recess, the chambers hold these very brief procedural sessions just to keep the legislative body officially active.
Right. I always hear pro-forma described as, keeping the lights on. But what is the actual structural benefit of that? Are they just trying to avoid sending an automated out-of-office reply to the White House?
Well, it's actually, think of it more like the night Dropbox at your local bank.
Okay, the night Dropbox.
Right. So the main lobby is closed. The tellers have all gone home to their districts. But the structural mechanism for depositing documents is still fully legally operational and time-stamped.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. It serves a dual purpose. First, it actively prevents the president from making recess appointments.
Which is a massive structural check on executive power.
Exactly. It's a huge structural check. And second, it keeps the legislative hopper open. The clerks, the parliamentarians, the staff, they're all actively processing the paperwork of governance right behind the scenes.
Okay, so let's pull one of those documents out of the night Dropbox and look at the actual plumbing of it.
Let's do it.
Representative Bynum and Representative Kim introduced H.R. 182, the Credit Union Investment Authority Act. Now, at first glance, a credit union bill might sound a bit dry.
A little technical, maybe?
Yeah, but this actually represents a fundamental shift in how these institutions operate financially.
It really does. It represents a massive expansion of financial leverage. Because traditionally, federal credit unions operate under highly restricted investment authorities.
Right.
The federal government severely limits what they can do with their money, mostly to ensure extreme stability and to protect member deposits.
Right. They have to be super safe with the money.
Exactly. They're confined to very conservative instruments. But H.R. 17882 fundamentally alters that structural limitation.
Because Section 2 of the bill amends the Federal Credit Union Act to actually allow these institutions to invest in corporate debt.
Right.
And then Section 3 expands their authority even further to include asset-backed securities. And let's make sure we are clear on the mechanics there, because asset-backed securities carry a specific kind of weight in the financial world.
Yeah, so think of a traditional bank loan as like a single heavy stone. It's stable, but it's hard to move.
Okay.
Asset-backed securities are more like taking hundreds of smaller pebbles, say, a massive bundle of individual auto loans, student loans, or credit card debts,
Yeah.
and cementing them all together into one new financial block. And then you can sell pieces of that new block to investors.
Oh, wow. So it allows credit unions to chase much higher yields.
Exactly. But it introduces a totally different structural risk if those underlying pebbles start to default.
Which is exactly why the bill doesn't just hand them the keys and walk away.
Right. There are mechanisms in place.
Yeah, the legislation actually mandates that the National Credit Union Administration board the NCUA issue strict regulations within 1 year of the bill's enactment.
Yeah, so the NCUA is structurally required to build the guardrails before the credit unions can start driving on this new road.
That makes sense.
Within that 1-year time frame, the board must dictate things like the minimum size of the initial issue of these asset-backed securities. They have to set the minimum aggregate sale price and the required investment grades.
So it's a calculated mechanical expansion of power paired with a mandated regulatory framework. And it wasn't just financial plumbing moving through the hopper today either. You see the machinery of the state responding to incredibly modern friction points.
Oh, absolutely.
For instance, Representative Salinas introduced H.R. 10102, which establishes a data center electricity excise tax. Now, why single out data centers for a specific federal tax?
Well, it's pretty much a mechanical response to a severe physical resource bottleneck.
Like the power grid.
Exactly. Data centers, especially with the exponential rise of artificial intelligence processing, they require massive, continuous amounts of electricity. And water, too, for cooling.
Oh, right, because those servers get incredibly hot.
Yeah. And that places an outsized physical load on regional power grids. So this bill attempts to use the federal tax code to price in the broader infrastructural cost of that electricity consumption.
So it essentially shifts the burden of grid maintenance back onto the heaviest users.
That's the structural goal, yeah.
And alongside that, we saw Representative Cisneros introduce H.R. 110-3 to reauthorize advanced drinking water technology grants.
Yeah.
And Representative Hoyle dropped H.R. 1009, which mandates reasonable pricing agreements for federally funded biomedical research products.
Now, that biomedical bill is another really fascinating piece of structural leverage.
How so?
Well, the underlying logic is that if taxpayer dollars are used to fund the initial high-risk research and development of a pharmaceutical product, right?
Yeah.
Then the federal government should have a mechanical mechanism to ensure the final product isn't priced completely out of reach for the very taxpayers who funded its creation in the first place.
That's a huge debate right now.
It is. These bills just show how lawmakers use the administrative conveyor belt to target highly specific economic pain points.
But, that conveyor belt doesn't just process infrastructure tweaks. It processes the full spectrum of deeply partisan ideological priorities, too.
Oh, absolutely. The hopper doesn't care if a bill is a bipartisan water grant or a highly charged social marker.
Right.
Because the legislative drafting process functions as a permanent searchable mirror for the policy objectives of the members.
Even without a floor debate.
Exactly. Even without anyone speaking on the floor, introducing a bill establishes a formal mechanical position on deeply debated societal issues. And today, we saw 2 bills that utilize federal structural authority to enforce very specific social policies.
Right, so Representative Hageman and Representative Biggs introduced H.R. 190. And this bill seeks to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to impose an excise tax on higher education institutions that allow male participation in female intercollegiate athletic programs.
So these lawmakers are essentially using the tax code as a lever.
Right.
If a school allows male athletes to participate in female sports, the bill proposes hitting that specific institution with a financial penalty via an excise tax.
Okay, so it translates a cultural and biological debate over Title IX directly into a mechanical financial disincentive.
Exactly. It's a structural tool applied to a social issue.
And then, on a totally different jurisdictional front, Representative Mace introduced H.R. 13098. This bill outlines the imposition of the death penalty for certain crimes committed specifically within the District of Columbia.
Now, this relies on a really unique piece of constitutional architecture.
Right, because D.C. isn't a state.
Right. Under Article 1, Congress holds exclusive jurisdiction over the District of Columbia, quote, in all cases whatsoever.
Wow.
Essentially, Congress operates as the ultimate city council for D.C.
Ah, I see.
So H.R. 1098 is a direct exercise of that specific structural authority. It seeks to unilaterally alter the absolute highest level of the local penal code, which is capital punishment within that specific federal territory.
Okay, so you have these intense, deeply contested ideological markers moving through this system. And right alongside them, you have moments of profound structural unity.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast.
It really is. House Resolution 1481, which was introduced by Representative Goldman of Texas, honors the life and legacy of the late Representative Kay Granger. And when you look at the source text, the co-sponsor list is just staggering.
It really is. You see the entire political spectrum of the Texas delegation just locking arms on the official record.
Yeah, I mean, you have Representative Crenshaw co-sponsoring right alongside Representative Doggett, Representative McCall right next to Representative Sazer.
Yeah.
In an era where, the public narrative is almost entirely focused on legislative gridlock and animosity, this resolution physically demonstrates how the Congressional Record serves as the unified historical memory of the institution itself.
The institution really remembers its own.
Yeah.
And that concept of the Congressional Record acting as an archive leads us to another massive function of these empty room sessions. Because while the legislative branch was technically, away from the microphones,
Right.
the executive branch was continuously feeding data into the system.
You were talking about the speaker's table.
Exactly. Under Clause 2 of Rule 14, there is an automated routing system in the House. Executive communications, final rules, agency reports, they're all delivered to the speaker's desk and then officially referred to the appropriate oversight committees.
It just keeps flowing.
It's the administrative state continuously reporting its actions back to its legislative supervisors, regardless of whether anyone is actually standing on the floor.
And the sheer variety of that inbox today is wild. I mean, the Environmental Protection Agency submitted a final rule regarding gasoline loading regulations, specifically in Maricopa County, Arizona.
Very specific.
Yeah. And the State Department transmitted a final rule concerning the visa bond program. The Department of Commerce sent over these granular updates on export controls for silencers and sound suppressors.
It's just a relentless tide of administrative data.
Truly.
But equally relentless is how individual representatives advocate for their home districts during these quiet periods.
Oh, right.
Because they use this mechanism called extensions of remarks. Actual speaking time on the House floor is strictly limited, right? So members submit written statements directly into the Congressional Record just to highlight local issues or honor constituents.
Wait, hold on. I actually have to stop you there and push back on this a little.
Okay, sure.
Isn't printing an extension of remarks about some local town event just an incredibly expensive way for a politician to print a nice, official-looking certificate to mail back to a constituent?
Oh, I see what you mean.
I mean, it feels like a massive waste of federal resources to log local trivia into the National Archive, doesn't it?
Well, you would certainly think so if you view it purely as a cynical constituent service trick.
Which a lot of people do.
Right. But functionally, it actually serves as the ultimate decentralized historical archive for the United States.
Really? How so?
Well, you have to remember that the Congressional Record is archived perpetually.
Right.
So when a representative submits an extension of remarks, they are elevating a hyperlocal community milestone into the permanent, searchable historical text of the federal government.
Oh, I see your point. When you actually read the remarks submitted today, you really are essentially reading the cultural fabric of the country.
Exactly.
Like Representative Hamadeh submitted a recognition of UFC President Dana White. But the context matters, right? It was documenting the UFC Freedom 250 event held at the White House to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. So it officially places that cultural milestone into the record.
And then contrast that massive national event with the highly localized preservation submitted by Representative Cohen.
Oh, the Child Care Center.
Yes, he formally noted the closure of the Jesse Mahan Child Care Center in Memphis.
That one really stands out to me
Mm-hmm.
because this facility was in operation for 68 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the very first licensed Black child care center in the entire city of Memphis. So by putting that into the Congressional Record, Representative Cohen ensures that a century from now, historians studying the evolution of early childhood education or the civil rights history of Memphis, they will find the specific legacy of Jesse Hoyt Mahan preserved right there in federal text.
Exactly. It's powerful. And we also saw Representative Whitman honoring the life and service of World War II pilot Marvin Russell. Representative McLean recognized the 85th anniversary of the Oxford Village Police Department. and documented the successful restoration of the Lapeer County Historic Courthouse.
So they aren't just certificates.
No, not at all. They are primary source documents for future historians, generated by local representatives.
Okay, so if we step back and look at the whole board for today, we have 27 new bills ranging from credit union plumbing to data center taxes.
Yep.
3 new resolutions, a huge stack of executive agency reports, and basically a diary of local American history.
Yep.
And all of that was generated from 28 seconds in the Senate and 3 minutes in the House.
Incredible, right?
It really is. But where does all this paperwork actually go next?
Well, the immediate next step for the pending legislation is committee assignment. The parliamentarians review the mechanical text of every single bill and assign it to the committee or committees with the relevant jurisdiction.
Okay, so tracing the path of the bills we discussed earlier makes this really clear. H.R. 1782, the Credit Union Investment Authority Act. That one seems fairly straightforward.
Yes, that bill was referred directly to the Committee on Financial Services.
Okay.
So that specific committee will now be responsible for holding hearings, bringing in the NCUA to question the feasibility of those asset-backed security regulations, and ultimately deciding whether to advance the bill for a full floor vote.
But then you look at H.R. 10102, the Data Center Electricity Excise Tax.
Yeah.
That bill didn't just go to one committee.
No, it didn't.
It was routed to the Committee on Ways and Means, the Committee on Energy and Commerce, and the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology.
Yeah, that multiple referral tells you everything you need to know about the structural complexity of the modern economy.
Because it touches everything.
Exactly. A data center tax isn't just a simple revenue issue for Ways and Means. It is a critical energy grid issue, so Energy and Commerce absolutely must evaluate it.
Right.
And it also impacts technological innovation, which falls directly under the jurisdiction of the Science Committee.
So it's like sending a new schematic to 3 different engineering departments to make sure installing it won't accidentally break the rest of the machine.
That's a perfect way to put it, yeah.
So when does the machine officially power back up for the lawmakers themselves, like physically?
Both chambers are actually scheduled to resume full operations on Monday, August 17th, 2026. The House will convene at 9 a.m., and the Senate will gavel in at 1:30 p.m.
And the visible cycle begins all over again.
Exactly.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Congress in context. We know the inner workings of the legislative branch can sometimes feel incredibly opaque.
Oh, definitely.
But understanding these unseen mechanics is exactly how you identify the real leverage points in our government.
Right, because knowledge is most valuable when you actually understand how the underlying systems operate.
Absolutely. So if you found this breakdown helpful, please remember to use the Buy Me a Coffee link in your show notes. It is really how we keep this ad-free civic education resource sustainable, and we truly rely on listeners like you to keep the research flowing.
And remember, you can find and read the full, unedited text of all 27 bills and the resolutions we discussed today by visiting congress.gov.
It's an amazing resource.
It really is. It is an incredibly robust, free tool for citizen engagement.
We highly encourage you to look up your local representatives, see what committees they sit on, and just contact them to share your perspective on any of these newly introduced bills.
Yeah, make your voice heard.
And you can also watch for upcoming committee hearings on these specific pieces of legislation. They'll likely start being scheduled the week of August 17th.
So before we go, I do want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a 3-minute, entirely empty room session can still generate 27 new pieces of legislation, process dozens of complex executive actions, and permanently archive the histories of communities from Memphis to Maricopa County, what does that reveal to you about the sheer velocity of the American administrative state?
Wow.
And really, how can we, as everyday citizens, best monitor a machine that never truly powers down?
That is a great question. It certainly makes you rethink what it means when someone says Congress is out of the office.
Definitely.
The gavel might be quiet, but the engine is always roaring. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.